1919 was an auspicious year in history. The First World War ended, ushering a drastic change in the world order. The Philippine Islands had been a U.S. territory for 2 decades and was promised independence under the Jones Law of 1916. Progressive reformers saw the country and its people as a major target for modernization, and education was its main weapon. 7 forward-looking Filipinas came together in 1919 to create a school where young women could gain the knowledge and skills that would make them modern women. Paz Marquez Benitez was the first president of the Philippine Women's College. Jose Abad Santos was its first chairman of the Board of Trustees. Francisca Tirona Benitez was the second president, and with her husband Dean Conrado, guided the school from a house on A. Flores Street to its iconic Taft Avenue campus. In 1932, the college became a university, making PWU the first university for women in Asia founded by Asians. It provided a space where innovations in education flourished, and young people were encouraged to be the best that they could be. For over 100 years, the Philippine Women's University has been known as a leader in quality education. In 1934, PWU moved into its main campus on Taft Avenue, and since the 1970s has been co-educational. Located in the heart of Metro Manila, it is easily accessible by public transport and surrounded by affordable housing. Today's PWU offers undergraduate and graduate courses in several fields of study. Its business and management programs are responsive to the needs of industry, using evolving technology for global competence. PWU graduates excel in arts and sciences, education, social work, and diplomacy. Its fine arts and music programs have produced outstanding graduates through a holistic education that treasures heritage as well as excellence. PWU has pioneered in fields such as food science, nutrition and dietetics, medical technology, pharmacy, and nursing. PWU continues to play an essential role in producing graduates who possess the skills that make them competitive in the country and anywhere in the world.
Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to be the MC for today's webinar. My name is Andrew Kevin Nicolor. On behalf of the Human Resource Management Office and Guidance Counseling and Testing Office, I would like to extend my warm welcome to all of you. As we all know, it is undeniable that at present time, educators are dealing with a more diverse group of learners. By diverse, we mean having students with physical learning difficulties and those who have mental health issues and concerns. This can be very challenging as it calls for them to be equipped with the skills on how to approach and handle the student with learning needs. For today's webinar entitled Accommodating and Supporting Students with Learning Needs in the Digital Classroom, we will realize the importance of the roles of our faculty and deans in advocating for inclusivity, accommodation, and support for students with learning needs. I humbly remind our dear faculty, for you to receive e-certificates, please make sure to answer our evaluation form. Please click the Google Form link, or you may use QR code provided at the end of the webinar. Your evaluation will also serve as your attendance. A few reminders for our program. All questions will be entertained in the question and answer portion. You may type your questions at the chat box when the Q&A starts. To formally begin our program, please join us with our video prayer and followed by the national anthem.
Dear God, thank you for the opportunity to meet together. Please help us to come together to make this institution reflect your kingdom. Breathe life into our ideas and decisions. Help us build a team that has love and respect at its heart. Give us the strength to continue working for your kingdom in this time of pandemic. Lord, come give us the inspiration to be the best we can be. May we be a shining example of your goodness and truth within, wherever we are. Inspire our thoughts, discussions, and ideas, and continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth for the greater glory of you. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Kayang magiliw, pero saan sinanganan? Alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyat ka ng magiting. Sa manlulupig, di ka pasisiin. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit pupukaw. May dilagang tulad, awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdidigdig. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidinig. Lupa ng araw ng walpatid magsikabay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya dapat may mga api ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
To officially welcome us to our program, it is an honor and privilege to have our beloved and supportive President, Sir Marco Benitez, to open our program with meaningful remarks.
Good morning to everyone attending this event virtually through Google Meet or on our social media platforms. Before anything else, I'd like to thank Ms. Cristina Meron and the rest of our guidance, counseling, and testing office for organizing this important webinar, which is even more significant under our current circumstances. Special thanks, of course, to our speaker, Ms. Vicky Dayao, who will be sharing with us her knowledge and expertise on the topic. I'd also like to acknowledge all the PWU and JASM's faculty who are in attendance today. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us this morning. Addressing the special learning needs of students with disabilities poses a considerable challenge to educators under normal conditions. With the abrupt switch to remote learning triggered by COVID-19, the task has become even more daunting. How do we provide each student with personalized attention in a digital classroom? How do we address every student's individual needs? How do we effectively engage and connect with all our learners in a remote learning setup? According to the 2016 National Disability Prevalence Survey, around 80% of Filipinos aged 15 and older suffer from some form of disability. Save the Children Philippines, an international child rights group, estimates the current number of Filipino learners with disabilities at 5.5 million. Like everyone else, students with disabilities need access to quality education so they can realize their potential and take active part in their communities. As educators, we are responsible for making sure that all our students have the support they need to make the most out of the learning opportunities presented to them. This not only requires ensuring access to resources and learning materials, but also providing special accommodation so they can cope with the challenges of online learning. PWU takes great pride in its commitment to inclusive education. This means acknowledging that each learner is unique and creating a space for that uniqueness. It means all our students benefit from the education we provide. It means we make sure that no one is left behind. As teachers, the role you play in your students' lives is multifold. You are not just instructors, but also counselors, motivators, and mentors. The burden of education may be heavy, but it does not fall on your shoulders alone. They say it takes a village to raise a child. In our case, it involves a community of teachers, parents, and other caring adults with a shared understanding of what each student needs. This webinar is a big step towards gaining that understanding. Let me end with a quote from American educator and US First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, who said, "Education teaches us compassion and kindness, connection to others. Education doesn't just make us smarter, it makes us whole." Thank you very much, and I look forward to a very insightful and interesting session.
Thank you so much, President, for the meaningful and wonderful remarks. Now, to introduce our speaker for today, let us have Sir Jojo Fajardo, our Senior HR Officer.
Good morning, everyone. Please allow me to introduce our speaker for today. She finished her bachelor's and master's degree in computer science and currently completing her PhD in educational leadership and management at De La Salle University. She is a former faculty member of DLSU College of Computer Studies. At 23 years old, she became an associate dean at DLSU. She also worked as assistant vice president for academic services and subsequently became a director of Carnegie Technology Education in Manila. For 15 years, she was the assistant vice chancellor for Learning Information System and Services and chief external affairs officers of De La Salle College of St. William. In addition, she established the college's inclusive educational initiative by helping the students with developmental disabilities to finish their degrees. She was able to attend in Paris because of her knowledge in computer science, universal design sessions, and principles. Her work in inclusive education took her to the Learning Cognitive and Development Center in Boston, Massachusetts, where she studies the Miller Method by Dr. Arnold Miller. Previously, she visited the Musashino Higashi Gauken schools in Tokyo, Japan, to familiarize herself with the daily life therapy of Dr. Kiyo Kitahara. She also spent time in Melbourne, Australia, to study the massive open online course for autism at Swinburne University of Technology and regularly participated in autism brainstorming learning sessions. She organized various seminars on autism and ADHD with speakers from the United Kingdom and Canada. Her paper on binary inclusion was accepted in the Asia Pacific Autism Conference in Sydney, Australia. In November 2019, she was a certified mental health facilitator, and in October 2020, was certified as a mental health facilitator trainer under the National Board for Certified Counselor. Everyone, let us welcome Mrs. Maria Victoria Dayao.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sir Fardo, for that introduction. Is my audio clear?
Yes po, yes po.
Okay, I'm
Loud
just
and clear.
checking. And I'll share my screen so we can start our discussion for this morning. Can you see my screen?
Yes po.
Okay po. Okay. So, this morning we're discussing accommodating and supporting students with learning needs in the digital classroom. Okay, however, before we go into the actual digital part, I think we should also have a good background or overview or big picture of what it means to be inclusive and how it is to support students with learning needs. Okay, that's why I'm going to introduce a lot of things in this session. So we will have concepts because I think we should be on the same page as far as inclusion or inclusive education is concerned. And then I will share some practices and experiences that I've had when working on this in another institution. In the latter part is the support that you can provide, no? Once we've understood all of these concepts and we've had some experiences, practices, no, that have worked to provide education for these students. And then on the last part, I'll just probably mention standards that are already existing as far as I know, because it has been some years since the United States started on this, no. But actually, when I went to Boston, I don't know, 8 years ago, they don't have inclusive education for tertiary education then, no? Kasi when I was asking about their practices and experiences, they said they don't have it for college students, and they were very much surprised that we have it in the Philippines. Okay, but before anything else, there's a video that I'd like to share with you.
While waiting for our video, I would like to acknowledge the presence of our deans and faculty, and of course the BED teachers. Thank you so much for coming.
Turn the other way, look around. Something big's about to happen.
Nadja, Mario, Jasmin, hallo. Alex. Urs. Urs, sag ich Urs. Hinter dir steht eine Herrenfigur, so wie sie eingesetzt wird, tatsächlich. Und nehmen jetzt all die Maße an, die wir brauchen zur Herstellung, wo es abweicht, damit wir sie wiederum produzieren, beziehungsweise modellieren und bauen können. Dieses Maß ist fixiert.
Ich denke, es ist auch ziemlich schwierig, um das genau nachzumachen.
Es fehlen 35.
Richtig hochsportlich machen. Wie war das mit der Fußform der 10 Formen?
Es sind nur 13.
Nur 13.
Nicht mich wundern, ob die Leute es sehen, Behinderung.
ist immer schon krass.
It's gonna make a difference. It's done, it's happened now. To take me away.
Die Leute, die dann zufällig vorbeigehen, werden, glaube ich, sehr irritiert sein.
We can start again.
Schon mal speziell, sich so zu sehen, wenn man sich nie so im Spiegel anschauen kann.
Okay, how was that?
Inspiring, ma'am.
Inspiring.
Yeah.
Okay. I every time I watch, I always present this when I do these talks, and I always, tear up at the end. No, it
Yes.
it's very touching. Now, why do I show this? Because I think um, it's like an analogy of things. No, when you see a physical disability, it's there, it's obvious. But when we deal with developmental disabilities or students with learning needs, it's not that obvious, diba? And so, in our perfect world where we have this concept of people and let's say students, diba? We expect this and that from them because we have this mold, no, of what learners should be. No, but if we deal with students with developmental needs, it's not necessarily the case. So what does that mean? It means we need to, sabi nga ng video, get closer. We need to understand, we need to know more. Okay, the people featured here, if you will want to know, they are, they're regular people. One is Miss Handicap 2010, Jasmine, a radio presenter and film critic, si Alex, a track and field athlete, si Ors, a blogger, si Nadia, and an actor, si Erwin. So if you will just look at their names and their professions, diba, they look like regular people. Or they have this profile of a regular person, but they do have these disabilities. Okay, so that's more or less the reason for this video. Now, we go to concepts. Okay. We need to level off, no? Because if we want to discuss inclusion, we need this concept. We need to understand this very well. Okay. On the lower left side, there's exclusion, no? So if you have a group of individuals who are of a certain category, like green dots, okay, and they're in a group, so everybody who is not green dot is excluded or out of that group. So you will have other colored dots outside of that circle. Okay, now, if you have two groups, like those who are neurotypicals, the green dots, and then you have those who have learning needs, so the smaller white circle with the other colored dots. So if you separate them, then you are segregating them. You need to say if you provide different services for each group, that's segregation. However, if you put in the smaller group inside the big group but are still distinct, that is what we call as integration. In BNIL, the deaf students are integrated. They are not fully included. Why? Because they have separate programs or degrees that they can go for. They are not mainstream in the sense that they cannot enter the programs of other students, no, not in the School of Deaf Education and Applied Studies. Doon lang sila sa school nila and they have their own programs. They have their own student council. They have most of, kumbaga they have their mini world there. So that's integration. If you really want PWU to be fully inclusive, then you cannot distinguish those who are neurotypicals and those who have learning needs. Okay, so sama-sama po sila sa isang circle. So what does that mean? It means a lot. Okay, so we can hopefully go through it today, no, in this very short session. And you will also learn how to be able to set it up, no, in your institution. Okay, the next concept is this medical model of disability and the social model of disability. Okay, why am I sharing this? Okay, we need to understand where we stand as far as disability is concerned. Are we subscribing to the medical model or the social model? Okay, what's the difference? In the medical model of disability, it's the person who has the problem. Okay, so you need to fix the person. Okay, impairments and chronic illness often pose real difficulties, but they should not be the main barriers, but they become the barriers. Okay, the individual needs to adjust and to adapt. Now, in the social model of disability, we think of society as the one providing for the barriers that these people encounter. No, it's not those who have disabilities who need to solve the problem. It's the society who needs to take down the barriers of environment, attitudes, and organizations. So in terms of environment, we need to make things more accessible, like the buildings, the language, the services, and others. Okay, so what do you think should you subscribe to if you would like to be an inclusive institution? Which model of disability? Sorry, I can't see the chat box pala. Teka lang. Okay, anyone? Mag-recite na lang po. Hello?
Yes po, according po kay Miss Rosalinda Lorelia, social model.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. No, yes, it should be the social model. Kasi if we look at it as a medical model, we're trying to fix the individual, which is not really what should be happening. No, whatever learning disability they have, they're probably born with it. No, so or they develop into it. So you cannot really fix them. No, but you need to provide for an environment of learning that will take down the social barriers. Okay, now, punta lang din tayo sa isa pang part. Okay, I just need to show this, no? On the global scene, when we started this, I don't know, siguro more than 10 years na to sa BNILD. Kasi before we became inclusive, we had 5 years of work on special learning needs students. And then we said, we will be an inclusive institution. And that was like, siguro mga 6 years before, 6 years ago, no? So medyo matagal na rin. Okay, on the global scene, we need to understand that it started with this Salamanca Statement and Framework for Action for disabled children. And then it developed into the Dakar Framework for Action, and then which eventually progressed to Education for All, or EFA, in UNESCO. So, merong part that we had to provide education for all students, including those with disabilities. Now, if you will notice, the new Sustainable Development Goals, this 17 of them, you will not see anything already that mentions disability. I think because it has already progressed to the point that we need to accommodate everyone. So, it's already quality of education, good health and well-being, etc. Wala nang masyadong mention of disability kasi inherent na sa lahat ng goals na kasama sila. Okay, so we need to understand that, no. The viewpoint is progressing, no, as years go by. Example, when we started, bawal tawaging autistic ang taong may autism. You have to say with autism. However, just before, when we just got to being used to with autism, those with autism already got involved, and they said, why hindi? Gusto namin autistic kasi tao kami, hindi kami with something. Okay? So, nag-shift siya, bumalik siya dun sa yung hindi pwede dati. So, may mga ganyan na progression, no, that we need to be aware of and sensitive to, kasi like they have their own identities that they would like to be recognized on, and we need to be sensitive about it. Okay. Now, on the regional scene, this is going somewhere, now just bear with me. There was this 27th Asia Pacific International Seminar on Education for Individuals with Special Needs in 2007. And then we signed this final report, no? Signatory si Philippines dito sa document nitong final report of that seminar, which ended in Yokohama, Japan. Okay, and I think, I'm not sure, no, but that's why we have this. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but this is a document issued by CHED, TESDA, and NCDA, the National Council on Disability Affairs. And it's the guidelines in the admissions of students with disabilities in higher education and post-secondary institutions in the Philippines. So meron pong ganitong document. It's ironic that if you search it in Google, you cannot find or download this document unless you subscribe to Scribd. Parang ganun ngayon eh. I had difficulty getting this document recently. No? I had it before. So if you will look at the document, it says here the disabilities that need to be admitted by schools are this, no? Deaf and hard of hearing students, students with learning disabilities, autism spectrum disorder, and ADHD, and then students with physical disabilities and students with visual impairments. So yan po. Nakalagay na po yan. And there is, I think, a CMO that goes with this, no, at the end of the document. So really, we don't have a choice. No, we cannot say that no, we will not be admitting the students. No, we will not have these kinds of students. Actually, now we have them. No, whether we know it, we like it, or not. No, nandiyan na sila kasi syempre, di ba? These kids grow up. They have to go for a college education, and they are high functioning. Okay, just a very quick comparison. No, if you notice that in the CHED guidelines, yun naka-enumerate yung kinds of disabilities. Now, if you will compare what is happening in the UK in 2010, this was then, mas madami yung types of disabilities that they accommodate or they allow or they admit. So yan. So advanced talaga yung UK. That's why I get the speakers from there, no, when we have seminars or sessions. So mas madami na silang na-accommodate. Okay, now some more on the concepts, no. Okay, we need to define just very briefly what inclusion is. Kasi we need to understand how the journey will be, okay, and what is required of us, and how to go about doing this. Okay, so inclusion is seen as a process of addressing and responding to the diversity of needs of all learners through increasing participation in learning, cultures and communities, and reducing exclusion within and from education. So this is a very comprehensive definition. No? It involves changes and modifications in content, approaches, structures, and strategies with a common vision which covers all children of the appropriate age range, and a conviction that it is the responsibility of the regular system to educate all children. So again, no, it doesn't give us really much of a choice. It says we need to do this, okay, as a community. Okay, and then if you will, sorry, if you will see, no, inclusion is welcoming diversity, benefiting all learners, children in school who may feel excluded, and providing equal access to education. It is not reforms of special education. Hindi siya SPED. Okay, I'm sorry, no, for those who are SPED. Inclusion is not technically SPED. No. It is responding only to it's not just responding to diversity, but also improving the quality of education for all learners. So when you do special learning needs students, you do not exclude naman those who are not in that category, okay? And others, no? So that's about it. So we need to understand what it is and what it is not. Now, it says, itong part na to, it is a process of addressing and responding to the diversity needs of all learners. And then, how do we do it? We increase participation, okay, and reduce exclusion. Okay, so there are 4 key elements, no, that are featured strongly in this concept of inclusion. Number 1, it is a process. Okay, so number 2, it is concerned with the identification and removal of barriers. And then it is about presence, participation, and achievement of all students. And it involves a particular emphasis on those groups of learners who may be at risk of marginalization. Yan po. So that is si Booth yung parang father of inclusion. He's been at it since early 1996. So it is a process. It is never ending. So hindi po natin pwedeng sabihin na okay, next year inclusive na kami or we are able to address this. No, it is an ongoing thing for the institution. So you start somewhere and you progress. Okay, you have goals, I would think, no, you can set them up, but it's never ending. Just remember, no, if you accommodate for students who have learning disabilities, sabihin natin autism and ADHD, 2 major na yon. What about those who are bipolar? What about those with dyslexia, dyscalculia? Tapos yung iba pa, no, the deaf, the blind. So, di ba, parang it's something that it doesn't end. And then, I'm not sure what DSM there is now, but it changes also, no, what they subscribe as those with mental concerns. So what about those who are depressed, anxious, di ba? So paano yung mga yon? Excuse me. So please take note, it is a process. So we need to be able to look at it in this form. Also, it means removal of barriers. So we need to identify what are these barriers and how to go about removing them. So it involves collecting, collating, and evaluating information from a wide variety of sources in order to plan for improvements in policy and practice. So, di ba nung narinig niyo yung introduction ko, I had to go all over the world more practically, no, to be able to do this for our institution. Kasi you need to know, you need to understand what is, di ba, parang what are the concerns and how to go about addressing them. Okay, so I'm not subscribing naman that you go out, no, but a lot of information are available now, no, kasi like if it was 12 years ago, hindi siya ganun kadami, it was just starting. Okay, and then, okay, presence, participation, and achievement. So it of all students, okay, so it means here presence is concerned with where children are educated and how reliably and punctually they attend. Sorry, children ang tawag kasi I think you have naman basic ed also, so okay lang yan. Then participation relates to the quality of their experiences whilst they are there and therefore must incorporate the views of the learners themselves. Okay, so we need to make them part of whatever is happening. We cannot just like push down, policies, practices on them. But since we are the adults and we are the admin, we are the ones managing, we may need to take an active role in it, but they need to participate. And achievement is about the outcomes of the learning across the curriculum, not just the test or examination results. So parang how much do they really learn and what comes out of it when they finish their education? Parang do they get work? Diba? That's a question we were dealing with before I left eh. Parang, okay, so napatapos na, napag-graduate mo, may trabaho ba? And are they accepted by the outside world, di ba? Parang baka naman walang kumuha sa kanila rin kasi they have these disabilities. So what does that mean? It means you also need to educate the community where they will go out and work in. So kasama yon. But I'll not dwell on that so much. Okay, and then emphasis on those at risk. So who are those at risk? So you need to identify and you need to know about them. Okay, so this indicates the moral responsibility to ensure that those groups that are statistically most at risk are carefully monitored and that where necessary, steps are taken to ensure their presence, participation, and achievement in the education system. Okay, so in summary, ito yan. So there should be there should be a learning process, there should be a learning environment, the systems, and the learners. I suppose that's why we are here, no? Because you need to you want to understand about all of these components, and then naging ano pa tayo, naging digital. Okay. I think the approach is still the same, whether digital or not. In general, ano, but of course there will be some points in terms of us being in the digital space now. Okay, examples of learners at risk. So what do we do? Okay, we need to identify sino ba yung servicean natin. So it could be those with learning difficulties, dyslexia, dyscalculia, and then ADHD, ASD, and then emotional and behavioral needs, bipolar disorders, depression. Dun sa BNID, we were just starting on bipolar disorders when I left. And then deafness with hearing loss, blindness and low vision, and those with physical disabilities like those with wheelchairs, mobility impairments, and muscle dystrophy. Baka merong students na may ganyang sakit eh, yung parang they cannot actively be moving around so much, no? And since kami nung time na yun, we had so many buildings, we had to ensure that that student with muscle dystrophy has classes only in one building. Kaya lang nung meron silang project dun sa kabilang building, ayaw naman niyang pumayag na hindi siya kasama, so sumama din siya. And we had to ensure that, you know, pabalik, hindi siya naglakad noon. Sumakay na siya dun sa mga service vehicles. Okay, so we need to understand these things, no? But even if their disability is ano nga yun kay Stephen Hawking, yung speech and mobility disabled, but they can think very, very well, so their brains are functioning very well. You can still accommodate for them or have them as a student. Okay, examples of systems: parents orientation, student monitoring, case conferencing and management, faculty and personnel learning sessions, and a best buddies program. Okay, we orient parents in terms of what is expected from the institution and what is expected from the student and what is expected from the parents. We always discuss this, no, for those with learning disabilities. It is important and I think it is necessary to the point that actually we sign contracts. Meron kaming parang agreement na these are the roles that or the responsibilities that each group has and we sign on it. Kasi you cannot do it without the home environment cooperating with you. Mahihirapan, sobra. And then student monitoring to the point that I do this personally. I check on the grades that they have at the end of the semester or the term And for those with 2 or 3 failures, okay lang yan. But for those with 3 or more, I call them already for case conferencing and management to find out what is wrong. Normally kasi pag more than 2 failures, almost all failures, that's what happens to them. So it means there is a problem. And it may not necessarily be the academics. The problem could be hindi sila pumapasok because of some reason. They just stay in the library for the entire SEM or they just stay in the CR for an entire SEM. May mga ganun kaming cases. So you need to understand what's happening. Kaya may case conferencing and management that is participated in by the student, the parent, the guidance counselor, the chairperson, the dean, and if kung may faculty involved, pwede rin yung particular faculty. And then you need to understand for each particular disability what it means, no? Ano yung difficulties, ano yung characteristics, how they go through life, how they learn, how they interact. We need to understand. Kaya may faculty and personal learning sessions. And since it is the whole institution that we wanted to be inclusive, we also train the drivers, the security guards, and those who are cleaning yung campus. Why? Kasi, frontliners. They get to see these students. So, lalo na halimbawa, yung nandun sa CR for like half of the term, nandun siya sa CR. So, ino-orient namin yung mga cleaners na pag may batang lagi kayong nakikita sa CR, baka hindi yan nawiwiwi, may concern yan. So, maybe you can get their name, and then give it to the counselor para pwede silang ipahanap, ipatawag at kausapin. Okay? And then we also have, we instituted this Best Buddies program. Best Buddies is an international organization that helps students with disabilities. So we wanted to make sure that students have friends and they are able to socialize. That's why we instituted this, naging chapter kami ng Best Buddies program. Okay, and then you can have one-on-one counseling sessions, needs assessment, so you can give tests, referrals to professionals. This is very important that counselors do, no? And peer caring sessions. So we involve students also in the process of providing for education of those with learning needs. Okay, examples of learning process. Ito, admission screening. So we ask, how do we, in the application, is there something, do you have a condition that you think can affect your learning in this institution? And if they check yes, we will ask through a development history form kung ano yon. Normally yon, they have a learning disability and they are diagnosed, so we get the development history. And then admission testing accommodation. So we do this by providing for, let's say, kung 3 straight hours yung exam, the entrance exam. So we can chunk it up into an hour or three 1-hour sessions with breaks in between. Mga ganun. Then yun nga, we also provide orientation. We invite speakers to discuss dun sa mga neurotypical students what it means, to have this disability, so that if they have classmates, they can be more compassionate and understanding for this kinds of the behavior mostly, that the students exhibit. Okay, and then you can have distraction reduced environments, so you can put them in a separate room for testing if that is necessary, etc. For testing accommodations also. Then there's academic tutorials, pull-out programs, registration accommodations, yun nga, yung classes, if you need to space them out or chunk them up or put them in one building, yan, registration accommodations yan. And assistive technologies. For the blind, kailangan nila ng assistive technologies. The Braille printer, text-to-speech reader, etc. Okay, and then examples of learning environments. Ito medyo hindi kami masyado pa sa sensory rooms, but we wanted to have one. So medyo sudo lang yung sa guidance counseling office. So use of universal design in designing, like how high should the elevator button be so that those who in wheelchairs can access it. Mga ganyan yan. And then lesson transitions, school to world transitions. School to world transitions, I saw this in Boston Higashi. They have this apartments that if you look at it from the outside, mukhang hiwa-hiwalay silang pinto. But if you go inside, it's just that there's one long corridor connecting all of these apartments. So somebody can, check on those who are staying there. And those who are staying there, very, yung autism nila is on the higher end of the spectrum. But they will be put out in the world, so they're trying to live by themselves. So yun yung school to world transition. So they try to live them by themselves, and if they can manage it, saka sila ilalabas sa community. But the parents, siguro they're not very comfortable, so they set up another one dun sa community mismo, meaning to say in the environment where the students will eventually live. Meron silang ganung pang set up just to ensure that, these kids can live on their own as adults. Okay? Now, examples of protocols. Ito, bonus na to. We have this, if we have an incident inside the class, example, yung estudyante nagwala siya, binato niya lahat ng gamit niya. What do you do? So we have these kinds of things. Call the counselor. The counselor calls the student to the counseling office, checks the list of disclosed cases, kung nasa listahan ba siya. Kasi we also have a list of undisclosed. We know may condition siya, pero hindi siya nag-disclose. So we check on that also. And then we talk to the students, the counselor explains to the classmates, the counselor explains to the faculty members, kasi we do not add nouns, na ikaw meron kang ganitong student sa class mo. We don't. We let them live their life as normally as possible. But if there is an incident, that's the only time we disclose. And then we assess the case of the student. Now, if outside the class naman, it's the discipline or Office of Student Behavior Officer who gets to handle it. But instead of filing a case, parang kung ano man yung misdemeanor niya, the discipline officer or OSB consults with the counselor. Parang nandyan ba yan sa listahan? So they can process that student properly. Kasi if you file a case, baka lalong magka-problema lang eh. So it doesn't mean though that you will not file, kasi nagkaroon siya ng misdemeanor, di ba? So you can still file the case, but you do it in such a way that it doesn't aggravate the situation. So may mga ganong protocols. You can establish that, So what happens if somebody acts out in class? So ngayon, pag digital, nawawala-wala sa Zoom or sa Google Meet. So what are the protocols for that? So we need to establish that. Okay, and then these are just some particulars that you may need to know. Pero ano yan siya, very general lang. So these are the things that we went through, sessions on ADHD, on autism. We need to understand kasi. And then emotion management strategies, universal design principles. So yeah. Okay, now let's go to this digital part. Okay, 10 o'clock. Modification versus accommodation. So what does that mean? So a modification means a change in what is being taught to or expected from the student. Okay, and an accommodation is a change that helps a student overcome or work around the disability. So what does modification mean? You can change something so that the student is able to achieve the learning or a learning. Okay, what does this mean? To the extreme, we had parang 3 blind mice. We had 3 blind students in Benil. All of them graduated. But before they graduated, we didn't know if they will make it or not. So, tsaka hindi sila sabay-sabay. They parang 1 year, they came 1 year apart, parang ganun. So the second one, his name is Franklin. Ano siya, computer applications. And he's blind, pero di ba visual ang programming. So hindi nagagawa niya, but we didn't know up to what extent he can continue and finish the program. So what the School of Management and ITNA did was gumawa sila ng ng alternative program in case he doesn't finish. Siyempre, he will not get the degree of computer applications, a BS. But he will be able to get something else, like a diploma. So, gumawa sila ng ganung program. That is a modification of the curriculum for this particular student. So, ganun ka-committed yung dean ng SMIT ng time na yon. And we had to we discussed kasi yun nga yung concern, up to where siya pwedeng matapos. But you don't need to go to that extreme, no? But I'm just giving an example of a modification. Now, an accommodation is a change to help the student overcome a disability. So, pwedeng if the student has trouble writing, baka naman pwede yung answers niya oral form. Okay, you can have that accommodation. Or kung ADHD, tapos it's a 3-hour exam, you may want to chunk up the time into 1 hour with breaks in between for this particular. That is an accommodation. Okay, so you can start thinking of it in these forms. These are support that you are already providing if you try to accommodate. Also, a modification example, di ba, yung exam natin, normally, cut and dry. Example, when you give, let's say it's a math exam, there is a math problem, di ba? So you write it out as words, di ba, yung math problem. Baka naman, to accommodate those who have difficulty reading words, like dyslexic, you can have illustrations that go with the problem. Okay, that is already a form of accommodation. So you can check the way you deliver assessments if it caters to all types of learners or diverse learners. So, syempre matrabaho, no? I know what it is asking of you, but this is what it means also to support students with learning disabilities. Okay. Now, we can look at categories of accommodations. So, these are presentation, response, setting, and scheduling. So presentation is how the student will access information. So it can be in the form of materials or instruction. So example, in terms of materials, do you provide text, diba, online? Baka naman pwedeng may audio that goes with it. Do you, as a teacher, do you give copies of your lecture notes to the students? Or do you just talk online like I'm doing now? Okay, di ba? Yung daldal lang ng daldal for like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours without giving them copies of lecture notes. So for those students who cannot cope, like say ADHD, ang hina ng attention span yan eh. So what happens? They space out after a while or after a very short while. So wala na. But if they have lecture notes, then they can go back to it or, read something. Or if you can give materials that they can read to supplement the learning. Okay, in terms of instruction, you can probably have a student or peer tutor assigned, or you can set up, let's say, a center in your institution where they can access peer tutors who can help them on specific problems like English, math, science, etc. So, pwedeng ganun. So, this is an accommodation for them. Okay, in terms of response, as I said kanina, how the student will demonstrate competence. So, kailangan ba written o pwede namang oral or using, they submit it in typewritten form instead of or after like parang offline, they do it offline and then they submit it instead of taking it online. Yeah. So these are types of responses. Now for setting where the student will be instructed and assessed. So do you always ask them to answer assessment individually, online, or can they work in small groups, or can they do one-on-one with you kung talagang extreme case of having difficulty, no? And then scheduling is when the student will be instructed and assessed. So you may need to give student extra time to complete assignments or tests, or you break up testing over several days instead of just one sit down schedule. Okay. So how do we support pa rin, ano? So this is help students develop new routines and strategies. Okay, so when we went online, syempre nagulo yung mundo ng mga estudyante natin, pati tayo, no? If you understand students with autism in the spectrum, no, autism spectrum disorder, they don't like deviations from routines. Kung ano yung na-set nila, pag nadidisrupt yun, na-upset sila, na-agitate sila, na-anxious sila. That's one of the things, no? Hindi nila gusto yun. So, if you can help students re-establish routines and strategies in these times, then that is a support. Okay, what does it mean? It means we just don't focus on the academics or delivering the lesson. We also need to be mindful of what it is they're probably going through, or kumustahin, di ba? Ask them how things are going, what are their issues and concerns. Probably some time dedicated to this discussions will be a big help, no, for those with learning needs or disabilities. We need to understand, no, kasi as adults, we are able to cope better. Also, for those who are below 23 ba yun, or 24, do you understand that the prefrontal cortex of the human brain, meaning to say the upper front part of our brain where we have our executive function, kasama to dun sa ADHD lecture, is not yet fully developed. Below 20, I'm not sure if it's 21, 23, or 24. Basta nung it develops early 20s. So, ibig sabihin, kulang pa. So, they need help talaga in coping. And this is neurotypical students. Lalo na, I would think those with developmental conditions, mas lalo yung struggle nila. So, if we know that, and we can help in this area, no, not just the academic part, then that is support that we can give. Okay, sabi dito, keep the easy part easy. Okay? So what does that mean? Example, you forgot, di ba, your password. You're supposed to sign in sa Zoom or whatever, you're logging in, you forgot your password. Di ba nakaka-stress yun, nakaka-anxious yun? Alam niyo ba yung mga ADHD, how many forgotten IDs ang meron sila sa ng face-to-face? Okay, we had to extend that sa Binilde kasi dati, if you have, parang if you forget your ID 3 times, minor offense. 3 minor offenses is 1 major offense. If you have a major offense, you cannot graduate with Latin honors. So what does that mean? So it means that yung ADHD student, makalimutan niya 3 times 3, 9 times yung ID niya sa buong time ng stay niya, hindi na siya pwede mag-Latin honors. How unfair or fair is that? Diba? Hindi. So, they forget kasi all the time. More or less, no? So, okay, I'm not disparaging them, no? But that's the behavior. So, what we did was we expanded it. Okay? So, parang 7 times, parang ganon. Ganun pa rin. If you forget your ID, meron pa rin yung mark yun. But 7, ginawa namin 7. So, naging 21 times na. So, yun, I think that was okay. 21 bago maging major. So, yun. But it applies to all students, no, to be fair, hindi lang those with ADHD. So, keep the easy part easy. When you present your lessons, try to keep it in the same space, no, where you normally do, or how they will access it. That helps already. That's kasi if we do it, okay, you access it here, or you get it here na ngayon. Yung kung paiba-iba, it's not in the same space, or we don't label it in the same manner, that can provide difficulties already for those with learning needs or disabilities that we probably are not conscious about, no? Feeling natin, cope kayo. But, putting it in the same space where they can access it all the time, na dun siya, and labeling it in a certain format all the time para mas madali yung access, then that helps already. Okay, so find new ways to meet students' needs. Okay, so what does it mean? Short of giving them individualized education programs, no, that sometimes we have to do for certain situations, di ba? What we can do is try to understand their learning needs per se, no? Parang kasi di ba, parang if you know what happens to the brain of an ADHD when they're functioning, di ba, parang ano yun Christmas light yan Pag yung isang bulb namatay, na namamatay yung buong kasi ganun sila. If they get distracted, whatever it is that they're supposed to be doing, focusing, or about to do, nawawala talaga yon. And it's not their fault, no? It's just how their brain functions. So we need to understand that, and also we need to know when it's happening in the classroom, but it is more difficult if it's digital. So I haven't taught kasi ngayong pandemic except for masters, no? So hindi ko sila nakita. But I would think there will be indicators like nag-off cam lagi. Well, yung nawawala, yung nada-drop, we can identify that. No? It's probably just connection. But try to notice, no, these things, no, kasi they might be manifestations of concerns, no, or something that they need to be helped with in terms of their needs. Okay, so you can have daily check-in with them, or have them set up daily check-ins with their peers or their classmates in groups or as buddies, pwedeng ganun just to ensure that everything is okay with them. Okay, so kasama din dyan yung if we can accommodate ways of providing better presentation of information like live captioning, so that yung nababasa nila, naririnig pa nila. It helps with the learning process better. Kasi if we just keep talking and there's nothing that they can see that is in words or that will help them retain information better, then it's going to be more difficult for them. Or a video probably is better if you can have them, although I'm not saying that you keep on producing one. I know how difficult that is now. But if there is something that can be a supplement to the learning, then you can provide that. And then also keep up positive relationships with students and families. This is very difficult, I think, now, no, kasi baka ma-misinterpret. But then again, kasi when it was face-to-face, it was easier because we call it the parents for orientation, and then we have contact with them already, and it's easier to coordinate. Now you can also do that, I would think, online, and provide for constant communication, kasi even the absences, that's a big thing already. Nung face-to-face, mas madali mag-absent. I suppose now I'm not sure, no? kung nawawala lang sila online, if they get to be monitored also at home, no? So if you know what's happening dun sa home environment or where it is they're studying, then you will be able to support them better. Okay, and then additional, konti na lang. So be flexible. Anticipate that students need to adjust, no? So maybe we can be more flexible in terms of timing, schedules, requirements, more than when we were, not in the pandemic stage. And then it says here, mix digital lessons with physical activities as much as you can, I think, no? Kasi sitting down for an hour or more is very difficult for a neurotypical student already, more so with those, I would think, with learning disabilities, no? So try to mix your lessons with something physical, or not sitting down in front of the screen for a long time. And then also try to incorporate life skills work to provide variation to academic and screen-based work. So if we can relate it to actual application in life, and we are able to also incorporate that as part of the learning, then that will be better. And yun nga, support their emotional needs by offering check-ins, yun, kinukumusta, or somebody does it, with them, like small groups or peers. Okay, and then for designing with accessibility in mind, so there is this I saw, recording accessible screencast. You screencast when you video what's happening on screen, di ba? We'll do it. We'll discuss it a bit more later. Or you can close caption your video or provide transcripts. You can do alt text for images so that in case they're accessing from a screen, napipick up yun eh. Kung phone man, hindi malinaw yung image, then the alt text can provide more information. Please don't use fancy fonts. Ano lang tayo, yung mga straight, wag yung serif, sans, Arial, Times New Roman, Verdana, Helvetica, yan po. And then ensure that they have accessibility to PDF, kasi normally we send out in PDF. And also describe hyperlinks. So don't say click here. Maybe you can say what it is that they're clicking about, So describe the hyperlinks. Now for screencasting, if you will do that, make sure the length is not too much. Normally, the younger the student is, for those in basic ed, syempre, mas mahirap yung mas mahaba. So time it to like a minute for grade 1. Parang ganun. Okay, and then the higher, but no more than like 4-5 minutes. Probably 3 is good. Then pairing visuals with narration to promote understanding. Make the videos easy to find. And then when you screencast, focus on a single skill at a time, maybe for laboratories, if you screencast. And then this is good for modeling the steps that students should take, or showing students how to use different technology, tools, and platforms for laboratories. Okay, so last, more or less, how do you accommodate and support students with learning needs in the digital classroom? Okay, first, I think we need to know what their difficulties are. So what are their frustrations? Okay, so we are able to support them, diba? If we don't understand, diba, how can you provide for accommodation or modification? So you really need to know for each learning disability, ano yung ibig sabihin nun. Sorry, ganun talaga yun. There's a lot of materials going on, and it can be part of your faculty dev activities also. But I think that is the only way, you need to understand and acknowledge. And then you adapt, let's say, assignment or schoolwork based on their neurological causes, no? So, what does it mean? We need to understand the phenomena of their learning, and then we adapt what we provide based on that. Okay, what does it mean? Ito yon. Kasi yung neurological struggles can be categorized in terms of inputting, processing, and outputting. And that is where we focus the accommodations. Okay, example, inputting, it refers to the student's abilities to understand and receive information. So let's say a common difficulty that they can have, halimbawa, input, poor note-taking skills, di ba? It can stem from poor auditory discrimination, lalo na yung online, and then teacher talks online, di ba? So, what do? You can provide skeletal outlines of the topics, no? Kasi inputs to, di ba? So, problema nga nila mag-notes. They cannot, organize themselves. Organizational pattern could be a problem for them. Or there can be PowerPoint slides that you provide on the internet or give them. There can be, notes from other students that can be shared, no? With the group. Diba, normally sa law school, may mga ganyan sila. Meron silang mga sharing of the cases, no? Because they cannot read everything all the time. So, yan, pwedeng ganon. Now, we can also have processing modifications and updates. So, let's say a student gives up very quickly kasi hindi niya kaya. Sasabihin niya, after one attempt, ayoko na. This kasi can stem from yung ganun na yung ugali nila eh. Kasi dati hindi naman talaga nila kinakaya. So they have learned defeat. They expect to fail. So what do we do? How modification and accommodations, let's say for these kinds of students, no? So what we can do is we can task into smaller units. We can allow rewriting or revisions, or we can provide extra credit options if they practice using, so just to motivate or inspire them. And then outputting modifications, if let's say they can't navigate online testing, so we can have tutorial support in using the online testing program in case you have one. So after they become familiar with the program, then hindi na problem dun sa testing yung platform. So that should be gotten out of the way. So there should be siguro or tutorial support if you are using some testing platforms. Okay, and if there are timing constraints, maybe you can extend that or remove it altogether. So yun naman po sa mga outputting accommodations. Okay, so if you want to have standards, these are the things you can focus or work on in institution. But I suggest you don't, this is for like in the future now when you have established things already in your university. Okay, I think that's all for now. We can have questions.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Daya, for wonderful and informative presentation. I'm sure that our teachers and faculty and deans learned a lot from you. And at this moment, I would like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Young and together with our deans and faculty. So at this juncture, we will go ahead and take some time for your questions. Please be sure to type your question in the comment sections. Christine? Sige, let's wait for the question. No? So actually, I've learned a lot from this webinar, most especially aside from faculty and guidance counselors, of course, or facilitators have a special role in accommodating our students. And thank you so much, Mrs. Daya, for that presentation. So,
It's a pleasure.
yes po. So, wala po ba mag-question?
Hala, don't say na discouraged na kayo sa dami yung gagawin. No, you should be inspired.
Yes, actually. No,
This is where the world is going, honestly. Remember the statistics that Sir Marco mentioned during his welcome remarks? Totoo po yan. Okay. Madami na po sila at nandyan na po sila. So all we can do is okay, there's Dr. Yang.
So from Dr. Yang, have you encountered someone with Tourette syndrome?
I think we have Tourette's in Benilde. Wala namang naging incident as far as I know. We just, wala na. Alam ko if there are attacks, it was just handled, parang, as a matter of fact, sorry siguro nasanay na rin kami masyado. Alam ko may Tourette's kami, ma'am one case, probably 2. Kasi nakikita ko yun the admissions reports every time there's a new school year. Wala, mas ano pa nga yung autism kasi may trigger word siya So mas merong incidents yung ganon.
Thank you.
So you need to...
Teacher Vicky, Hindi, kasi the people with Tourette syndrome, they can be destructive. Kasi repetitive yung, their actions are repetitive. And they can distract, the classmates. Isa may sound pa yan. Though they're intelligent. I mean, only for that thing.
Yeah.
So I just asked that.
Oo. Sure ako meron, that's one. But I don't recall anything different. So I suppose hindi active in class. That's one. And yun nga, we give orientation to students so they understand. I think that's very important. Kasi if they're unaware, they can be vile and mean. Alam niyo yun, di ba? Kasi iba Or, alam mo yun, parang it's different and therefore, di ba, iba yung reaction nila. But if they know and understand, they can be also very kind and open and accommodating. Honestly, experience several cases na alam mo yun, yung ADHD. They hated each other to the point that magsusuntukan daw kita sila. Yung mga ganung, tas nung nalaman nung isa kasi napansin niya na merong dun sa office ko, which I kept. And I said, no, you cannot see. So, meron. Sabi ko, I'm sorry, I cannot disclose that information. So, nag-conclude siya na meron. So, naging kinder siya. Sabi niya, okay, I'll be kinder to him next time. Yun yung sabi nung isang batang may ADHD. So, yun.
Yeah, Vicky, one question, which is actually the concern of all our faculty members, because I noticed that maybe you can tell our faculty, because somehow the tendency to treat an individual with special need is more or less the same as, the tendency for a normal student. And so, for example, even in the grading of the students, yes, you were talking about accommodation here and modification. Because sometimes we cannot expect these individuals to really reach the level of a normal kid. So probably we, as you said, I think it is on the faculty, you may, tell me if I'm wrong, to accommodate these students. And maybe in terms of requirements, in terms of probably the grades, we're not saying you give the person 4, in LaSalle, or flat 1 here at PWU. But I guess there should be some form of accommodation because of the nature of the kasi that was my problem also in another school. The teachers were failing the students. And we have a student with a blood clot in the brain, a student who is autistic. And they were so angry with the students. Kasi parang it did not create a quiet or an atmosphere conducive to teaching, you know. So parang they become destructive. And so it should be, I don't know, maybe it should come from you. How should
Okay.
our teachers
Yes.
handle these kinds of students? Thank you,
Okay.
Vicky. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, that is a very common concern. Okay, kasi kahit kami, when we started, the issues were also raised. Okay, remember yung sinabi ni Sir Marco, it takes a child. Totoo po yun. You need to work as an institution. Kasi, tingnan nyo you need, as faculty members, we need to understand what is happening. What is our purpose in being a faculty? It is to deliver the learning, di ba? Now, in delivering the learning, what does it mean? We have this type already, whether we like it or not. We cannot say that the institution should not accept the students. Wala po tayong maging estudyante. Remember, Sir Marcos said, 80% nowadays have some concern in terms of development, di ba? Kahit anxiety lang yan hindi na siya biro ngayon kasi they get to be medicated already. So, as an institution, I think you need to discuss kasi you need to be fair. You apply one rule to one set of students and another for another set. That is segregation. Important yung concept no binigay ko kanina. The rule should apply to all. But what is fair to all? Doon. And that needs to be solved by the institution as a group. Okay, as faculty members, di ba, if we understand what a student is going through or the difference in terms of, kasi ang level yung yung if you study ADHD and autism, sasabihin sa inyo kung ano yung chromosome nakakaiba sa kanila and what that means in terms of their. So, hindi naman talaga nila kasalanan. It is not behavioral. It is something already that, it's physical, I suppose, in terms of composition of your brain or your genetic. Ganun po yun na component. So, in delivering our learning, how can we be fair to those who are different, diba? So, kailangan din po natin isipin yun as faculty members and up to what extent we can provide or modification that is still fair to the rest of the students. And it is true, we cannot expect everyone to perform in the same way. But how do we ensure that learning is achieved, di ba? Yun yung sa tingin ko, yun yung dapat nating tanungin sa sarili natin. And there are already ways, Yung differentiated instruction has been there in the basic ed group for quite some time, And those in international schools, parang minaster na nila yan in terms of giving assessment. So differentiated na yung instruction to accommodate for diverse learners. We can look into these practices or or strategies and learn from that and still apply it to students so that we are still fair to everyone and yet we are the learning. Now, compassion is another thing. We can we exercise that but with wisdom, okay? So, hindi naman natin siya pwedeng pag-graduatein kung hindi naman talaga siya sapat dun sa requirement, diba? Kasi kaya we also need to think of the work after For our blind students, we had na-employ siya nung company nila kasi rich, So, diba? But we couldn't measure success there For the second one and the third, I think they were able to work outside. But was problem namin yung autism namin. So, hinanapan talaga namin ng company yun na maintindihan siya tapos niya is appropriate for the work, no? So may mga ganung ano yun eh. So 'di ba, pag pinagraduate mo yon, okay ka na, 'di ba? Kasi you know that they are able to function as members of society, they're able to do work that is in line with their education, and then it's just like a company should understand their behavior, no? Kasi meron talagang kakaiba na hindi naman talaga harmful, but then again, it's different and some people might not understand. Yun po. I hope that answers it, Dr. Yang.
Thank you very much.
May question pa ako nakitang nag-pop up.
Actually, from Miss Rosalinda Lorilla, Ma'am, may I know if there should be assistance from the guidance office to the faculty concerned on what approach to be done?
Okay. You need to work hand in hand, faculty counselors. Nung I was running this in Benilde, I had a very good relationship with the counseling group kasi ano yun eh, they know more about DSM-5, yun yung Bible ng mental health concerns, no? They know more, so we need their expertise on that. They also have the contacts to refer to professional cases. So you need to work hand in hand, and you need to discuss. We discuss a lot of things, no? Like pag ganito, how do we handle it at the discipline level, at the academic level, at the administrative level. Lagi pong discussions yun. Kaya talagang thing, and yun. And each one provides their expertise to solve the problem or to contribute positively, no, to promoting the learning for these kinds of students.
May I just add, Ma'am Vicky?
Sige po.
Yeah, I think this one is already part of the assistance, no? This talk also is really part. Kasi during our orientation, I know naman the concerns of faculty. Lahat naman ng questions nila, I really find it valid, yung mga questions nila, which I will also ask later. Yeah, what we do naman po is we coordinate with the parents. Gaya nga ng sinabi ko, shinare ko with Ma'am Vicky kanina na as much as possible, we coordinate with the specialists who diagnose them to know then if they have specific recommendations that we can parang consider. Kumbaga, as long as kaya nating i-provide so that we can align, the goals are aligned for the student. So that's what we can do. But in terms really of very specific to pedagogy and medyo yun din, honestly, yun yung difficult sa end namin sa guidance kasi nga hindi naman kami teachers din talaga. So I know din naman where the teachers are coming from. Kaya talagang as much as possible, we would like to get the opinion or suggestions of the attending specialist din ng students. With that po, Ma'am Vicky, pwedeng i-ano ko na rin yung question ko. How about those then? Our challenge then on our end kasi is not all of these students would like to seek accommodation even if they have the learning needs. Like kasi we issue parang ang tawag dito yung consent to release information, like papayagan ba nila na i-inform namin din yung faculty about their conditions. I think you said this kanina, yung undisclosed and disclosed, no? So how do we go about this? It's really very evident that the student has a need. Kaya lang on our end, ayaw nilang ipasabi. So what can you suggest po kaya, ma'am?
Okay. Actually, kasi you need to all define ko ano yung stand nyo about this. Kasi kami, we let them function as best they can, as normally or regularly as possible. That's why, even if you have a list at the tell all faculty members, oy, meron ka sa ganito listahan mo. But since we've made the faculty members aware of these conditions, nasa spot nila yan eh. So sasabihin nila, si ganito ba meron? O nasa klase ko yan. So it's as that already. So I suppose that worked with us, no? Ayaw din kasi ng estudyante na sasabihin yun na may ganun sila. No? They feel uncomfortable. And they would like to thrive in a regular environment without considerations. Well, that is their decision. Now, this is where comes in nga eh. Diba? Ako naman kasi I'm able to monitor lang at the end. But then, kasi nga, parang medyo confident na ako sa faculty na nakaka-spot sila eh, and then they are able to address kung may concern, di ba? Pero siguro, what you can do is, if you can still monitor within, di ba? Parang, ano ba, okay naman siya regular, di, walang kailangan accommodation, di ba? Bakit mo siya bibigyan, di ba? But if they're failing, they're not performing, then that should be, already, and then find out, di ba? So, then you can probably provide for accommodation. I think that should be, well, that's the approach that worked for us, no? It's a balance din eh, medyo, di ba? Kailangan balansehin mo. How much do you say? How much do you keep? How much do you allow them? How much do you provide for them? Parang gano'n. So yun, kayo na po ang magdi-define nun as you go through this journey. Kasi sinasabi ko, it's it doesn't end. It's a process. Oo.
Yeah.
Meron yata nagre-raise ng hand kanina.
Thank you.
Si Sir Sam. Pero let's po muna yung comment ni Sir Jericho.
Okay,
so,
sige.
Hello. Not a question, more of suggestion. As educators, maybe we can start using the correct terms. Regular students sound better than a normal students.
Yes, please don't use abnormal or the R word. Actually, yung neurotypical is a very scientific term naman, but sometimes I use it just it quickly, di ba? But not everyone is familiar with it. So you can find out what terms are for particular groups and use it appropriately. Kasi nag-shift nga rin siya, as I mentioned, yung with autism tsaka yung autistic. Actually, ngayon hindi ko na siya kabisado. I would think autistic applies ngayon.
And another question, bago tayo pumunta kay Sir Sam, no? So kay Ma'am Serrano, do you perform? Do they perform those with learning disability better in online than the face-to-face classes?
Sir, nawala yata ako for a while. I didn't hear the entire question. Please.
Galing po kay Ma'am Serrano, Serrana, do they perform those with learning disabilities better in online than in face-to-face classes?
Okay. I haven't seen studies about it yet, so I would not be able to comment in terms of, full research. But I would think it depends how well the teacher is able to provide
Yes.
in the face-to-face or in the online, Kasi I think it is still dependent on the teacher how they present or provide their lessons, di ba, to address all types of learners.
Yes, and it depends siguro sa student kung talagang they will perform with the class or not, no? So, sige po, Sir Sam, do you have questions po?
Yes po, sir.
Thank you so much po.
Morning, everyone. You said a while ago, you can hear po.
Hello.
Hello po, paulit po, sir. Ayan po. Medyo choppy.
Sorry. So, a while ago, about modification, and you have experience like this in, I think you said it was Binil, about a visually impaired student. So he did not graduate in a degree program. Is that correct po?
They graduated in their degree programs.
In the degree program. So what modifications were made, ma'am? Kasi, diba, as you said, there's something about alternative degree.
Yeah.
What was that po? And how does it work?
So what we did was we parang gumawa kami ng ibang curriculum for that person, but hindi siya makakakuha ng degree, just a diploma, in case is unable to requirements of the regular curriculum. But fortunately, it was not needed, no? Kasi nakagraduate siya. It took him a while, not really just the 3 years one term for regular students. Siguro na mga naka-4 din siya. But nakatapos sila, all of them, yung pati si Trixie. Natapos naman sila. But after that, hindi na kami nagkaroon ng blind students. And that, I mean, their styles are different kasi yung first namin, full support siya So meron siyang guide, meron assistive technologies kasi they're quite well off. But the other one is pa siya ng parents niya kasi of the disability. So he had to strive on his own. Wala siyang guide. Meron lang on the first day of class. Tapos on the succeeding days, mag-isa na lang siyang papasok. Wala siyang cane, wala siyang... So kinakabisa niya yung kung saan siya sa building at kung saan yung classrooms niya. Ganun siya ka-independent. No? Kaya natapos din niya siguro yung program kahit ganun kahirap.
Okay.
Each case is different. Sorry. Sige, sir.
The reason why I'm asking po, ma'am, is because with the degree program, right, students are required to have thesis and have this defended. But what about students who have learning needs, who have trouble with ideation and conceptualization?
Okay. If the thesis is a requirement for graduation, then they need to comply. Tama po ba? If they have problems with some of the concepts, so the support that can be provided should be there. So parang it's ideation. Kailangan i-facilitate yung ideation for them. Okay, example. Halimbawa, for an ADHD student, meron siyang assignment. Sabi niya, he needs to write a storyboard on something. So, tinanong ko, okay, what is your idea? Sabi niya, bad boys. Okay, sabi ko, okay, what about bad boys? Sabi niya, bad boys. Sabi ko, oo nga, ano tungkol saan sa bad boys? Bad boys nga, sabi niya, nagalit na siya. So, in other words, there's a disconnect So, sabi ko, so, I got yung stack of notepads ko, sabi ko ganyan. Write down, number 1, ano yung first na ipapakita mo? Sabi niya gano'n, smoking. Okay. Next paper, drinking. Third paper, drugs. Yun yung point niya ng boys. Pero nag-aaway kami dun sa term na bad boy. So, di ba parang conceptualization. So, you might need to facilitate that for them. It doesn't mean they're not doing it themselves. It's just that the facilitation might be needed. Kasi nga, kung on their own, may kulang. So, may konting support pa para kailangan ilabas sa kanila. Tapos nung bumalik siya dun sa author's class, sabi ko, so what happened? Sabi niya, ako lang ang may homework. So that's just a story that I have, no? I hope that answers your question, Sir Samuel.
Yes, ma'am, in part po. But the thing is that what I'm asking kasi is that we don't have clear-cut guidelines on faculty should address these problems.
Okay.
And if we are to create a policy, ano po yun? We are not trained naman. And not all teachers would be willing, right, to be that good student. So we need is there a policy on how to handle students with learning disability? I know that this should be institutionalized as you said earlier, but saan po ba makakuha na example daw?
Sorry, ano po yung last part? Hindi ko nakuha.
Yun nga po, if we are to create policy, siguro hindi naman siya pwedeng faculty level kasi we cannot implement a policy sa amin lang, sa faculty lang. So it has to be institutionalized. Kailangan we can recommend and we cannot implement it without approval. What I'm asking is, as in your school po, di po ba, you have this clear-cut guideline on how faculty could address students with learning needs. Di po ba? So,
Sir,
yes po.
actually, we started with practices more than the policy, other way around. Kasi parang faculty got in, tapos nagkakwentuhan na lang kami to the point na parang sandali lang, parang marami na to. So then saka kami nag-evolve into formal structure of it. Kasi talagang madami sila dun sa Binil. And I suppose it's also the culture that was started by Brother Andrew when he established College of St. Benilde in terms of really providing for needs of students. Hindi siya katulad sa De La Salle or Swim, dito talagang kailangan pansinin mo at asikasuhin yung estudyante. So that was more of a practice that to a policy. But I don't expect all institutions to be that way or have the same culture. No? So you may, if you have the consciousness already, you can probably start with creating policies, equipping faculty members. Kailangan i-equip, hindi pwedeng hindi equip. At the same time, you also need professionals to be at your side. Hindi ko naman sabihin all the time, but most of the time. Kasi we employ DevPeds kasi kailangan namin din ng guidance on a lot of things aside from the guidance counselor. So we do have, kasi parang as mental health facilitator, we cannot provide for the solution. We can just facilitate for a solution. Dapat yung role ng faculty. You'd recognize, you understand, you can help provide the learning, but deal with all about the learning need or the disability. Kasi most of the time, kailangan pa rin ng guidance counselor. Kasi it's the academics is just a small portion. The interaction with other students, the socialization, things they go through, lalo na kung mga teens yan, ang dami nun. So it needs professionals to be by your side to guide you and help also support. Yan po.
Yes po, ma'am. Actually, suki po ako ng guidance office. So, kasi sa dami ng mga ganyang estudyante ko.
That's very good.
Yan po. Hanggang pati ako yata gusto ko na rin magpa-counsel sa kanila. Yun. Yung ano po ni Ms. Marie, I've read a handbook on practices on reasonable accommodations with example sana. Yes, I think this would be institutional concern na lang po. We have to create this policy within the university. Well, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
So actually, we have a lot of questions, Miss Vicky. So another question po, regular students also go and off due to intermittent internet connection. So it might be really a good indicators for learners with disability having issues during the class. It might be necessary to ask the guardians for verifications if there are problems. Kumbaga parang
I think this is a suggestion.
Yes, suggestion.
And that's good.
And actually, important din talaga ang collaboration with the parents. Most especially kung we need to know kung pumapasok talaga or what happened inside the house. Kasi it's really parang it's really difficult din kasi talaga on part of the faculty and of course the guidance to know the current situation of the students. So another, yes.
Can I just make a comment? Actually, the parents of these students will appreciate the institution very much, no? Kasi yun nga, you're extending extra to provide for the education. So they will cooperate. However, there are also in denial or they don't want to, ayaw nilang tanggapin or they're not cooperating. That is the more difficult part, no? So to the institution to support these students, pero hindi talaga pwede kasi there was a time na ako na yung sabi ko dun sa DepEd, ako magbabayad. Session mo yan. Kasi
Yes,
hirap
po.
na kami ng ano, hindi pwede. Kasi even if you
Yes.
change whatever is here, if the home environment is not attended to, may problema pa rin. So, doon yung problem kung ganun yung
Yes.
parents.
Totoo po yan, na-encounter din namin yung mga problems, kunyari sa mga parents na parang hindi pumapasok yan, alam ko pumapasok yan si student, parang sa kanila nanggagaling yung denial. So it's really a challenge then from us, and we really want to extend the patience from the faculty. Kung minsan nagtatanong sila what happened to the student, ano yung assessment, and it's really hard din naman to give kasi minsan we need recommendations from doctor, we need to talk with the parents, kaso lang minsan may cases talaga na in denial din talaga si parent with that. Kasi, so it's really hard, lalo na online din ngayon.
Yeah.
So another comment po from Ms. or Mr. Pueblo. This is just a comment from my training abroad. We were warned that the faculty should not diagnose by means of asking the students. And the guidance, if she or he has a learning disabilities, because the faculty is not trained in identifying the people with learning disabilities.
Okay, I'd like to clarify, diagnosing is a formal process that ano yun? Qualified professionals do. That's why we ask for the developmental history form. Meron kaming form, pinapa-fill up namin dun sa DevPed kasi syempre ano pa lang yung developmental pediatrician nila. Otherwise, kahit anong sabihin ng parent ng bata, if we don't have that formal paper, we cannot parang say na ganito. Okay, so it is a formal thing. We cannot diagnose, but we can, we can see manifestations or behaviors that may be attributed to this, but it doesn't necessarily mean na ganun, lalo na kung walang formal document. Tama po yun, tama.
And another question po from Ms. Ms. Katuwiran. I observed some of our students under our learning support program perform better during online classes. So depende rin talaga sa students. And according ulit po kay, parang nasagot na po ito kanina or nabanggit na to ni Sir Sam, yung comment po or about handbook on practices on reasonable accommodation with examples must be given to faculty by the university. I also asked this form, this from Daniel before when I worked there, and it was promised and we never got it.
Talaga? Hindi ako yun nag-promise. Hindi ko alam na may ganung handbook. Okay.
So actually, sabi nga ni Miss Vicky, it's a process itong accommodation. Di ba parang it took, or inclusivity, it took years. No? So talagang kailangan ang daming collaboration or ang daming consultation. And kaya ngayon we have this program that for the faculty, it's an initial step for that accommodation and inclusivity.
And I will also give parang caution lang, no? Not everybody is going to be comfortable with it. Okay? Kasi 'di ba, sometimes may trauma associated dyan sa mga ganyan Alam niyo yun, baka manakit, baka ganito, baka ganyan. Okay? But if the faculty is dedicated very much, no? Kasi ako when I was doing that, talagang ready akong parang masapak ng estudyante na magwawala. No, talaga, I was ready for that kasi it can happen, di ba? So, kasi they can become, not naman, walang ganong incident. Kung meron ng violence, it was towards a door. Parang, nag-react na tamaan yung door. Parang gano'n. That was the extreme case of violence that we've had. But, that was the extent of of yung preparedness ko. But then again, not everyone was comfortable. So, malalaman nyo din yun. And you need to give people time and space din pagdating sa ganun. Hindi natin pwedeng i-push lang na lahat tayo dapat ganito. Hindi. But once they grow into it or evolve into it, although not everyone will, no? Pero those who are hesitant at first and they grow into it, minsan sila pa yung magaling na advocate. O nag-abroad na at gusto nang matuto ng mas marami about these things. So
Yes. So any other questions po? So may nag-raise po ng hand from Miss Abigail Agustin.
Good morning po.
Good
Teacher
morning
Abby
po.
po from Jasams, Quezon City. Ma'am, you mentioned a while ago you have a program for your special students. They're separated from or integrated, something like that. I was not really able to catch it kasi... Okay, sige ma'am. Second po, going back to the assessment, should the student or the parents are in denial, accepted na po fact po yan, na they are truly 1,000% in denial, especially when their children have special needs. Kahit sinabi na po ng doktor, may special needs ito, but they do not want to disclose it to the school. How do you handle this po?
with great difficulty.
Yes.
kunwari, no, do you accept them? Accept nyo siya. Siyempre, bawal naman po pag itatanggihan natin sila. So, tatanggapin po natin sila sa school. And then, while they are in the, we do not call our setting na regular classes. We call it the general education setting in JASAMS, no?
Okay.
Although we have the learning support program. Ang po namin, paano po ninyo ma-assess, paano nyo sasabihin sa magulang na ito na po ang problema and your child needs to move to this program? How will you convince the parents na hindi sila mag-aalburuto, ma'am?
Actually, talagang with great difficulty. I think the only thing we can do, no, as an academic institution or as the one providing education is to keep trying, diba? And then parang do our part, parang basta ginawa natin, ito yung part namin, ginawa namin to the very all the time, every time. Parang gano'n. Actually, yung deans namin dun sa pwede ba itong mga ganitong parents, ipasok mo dyan sa program mo? Sabi ko, sorry, hindi. Yung mga pumasok. I mean, can be part of a program na, but that's a joke thing that we have. Kasi talagang mahirap talaga. But then again, I think, no, kasi if we have this, and then we say we are doing this, and there are people who are not cooperating, we can but try. Ganun lang yung, kasi kahit ako yung merong isang student, nag-slash na siya eh. Sinabi ko dun sa parent. Tapos kinumusta ko yung bata kasi it was over the weekend. So sabi ko, how are you? Ay nagkagulo kasi pinagbintangan siya na nagda-drugs daw siya. So parang ako, how did it from trying to harm yourself to doing drugs? So apparently there's a family environment. Tapos sinasabi niya sa akin, di ba, kilala mo naman ako eh, hindi naman ako nagda-drugs, di ba. So parang, oh my gosh. So it that difficult, I mean, di ba, yung sobrang mag-blow up. But, you know, all we could do was keep trying na, okay, monitor the student, tapos pagka may problema, try to support and help solve kung ano man yun. Let's say, bumabagsak, bakit ka bumabagsak ng classes, nung nagka-girlfriend, yung mga ganun, no? It's the counselor who does it, but all we can do, support and provide for whatever it is we said. Kaya nga meron din kaming that we will provide for as far as this program is concerned. Kaya may mga roles. If the parents don't do theirs, di ba? In the end, you cannot blame us. We can only do so much, ma'am. But we keep trying. Yun lang ang inaano namin. Hindi kami nag-give up kasi kawawa yung estudyante. Pagka, di ba, we give up on them. Nag-give up na nga yung o hindi na sila pinapansin. So, yun lang yung pwede. Sa tingin ko, hanggang dun lang.
Maraming salamat, ma'am, because we have graduates from JASAMS Quezon City who are now in Benilde. And meron rin
Okay.
kaming graduate from your I think she was taking
Phil?
digital course, pero graduate na po siya.
Okay.
She wanted to be a photographer, so she went to Benilde.
Digital. Okay.
Pero meron po kaming current ngayon, kabatch po ng mga students po namin. We actually communicate almost every other weekend, pangangamusta.
Yes.
How they are,
Oo.
how they are. That's why sometimes I get to know who their professors are, how they are doing. Kulang na lang pati assignment. Mag-lesson na ho
Totoo
kami.
yan. Oo, totoo yan.
Oho. So that's why I'm asking po, ma'am, actually, kasi in Quezon City, in JASAMS, should the parents are still in denial that their kids are hindi special yan. It's just a face. Ganyan po yan, di po ba?
Yes, that's
So yung
true.
sa amin, kailangan matapang po ang guidance namin, tulad ni Teacher Maricar, tsaka yung mga taga-PWU po talagang, kulang na lang may armor po silang dala-dala to prove to the parents that their kids are already going through so much difficulty.
Yeah.
That's why I see, and through the communication with Ms. Sel and Sir Pao, na I get to know that our students are doing good in college. Although, naano po ako na kasi the teachers, I think, are, they're surprised that the professors in PWU are surprised that they're doing well. In kasi because of how the guidance is, yung alalay nila sa mga bata from high school, actually from basic education, elementary until high school, promote talaga po namin sila sa PWU because we know aalalayan po sila. And happy din po kami sa Benilde.
Mabuti naman. Thank you. Oo.
Thank you.
May question po ba? So it looked like we've covered. Yeah, Miss
Ako
T.
rin may question pang additional.
Sige, Miss T.
Again, ito yung mga nagagather ko during our orientation. And I think, again, this is really a valid question. Since we are, the students who have special learning needs or have learning needs are mainstream, they're together with the other regular students. Syempre hindi naiiwasan na bakit yung approach kay gantong student, di ba? Hindi maiiwasan na the students would ask questions like that sa teachers nila na baka they would find it unfair, na why are the grades like this, ganito lang yun. So how do we, parang narinig ko rin yan kanina, Ma'am Vicky, na you said something, I'm not sure if I got it right, na parang i-inform din yung student, tama po ba? So how do we, ano yung suggestions, how can we go about it, or how do we go about these kinds of situations po?
Okay. Kasi when we said we will be an inclusive, kasi strategic initiative number 1, inclusion eh. So nung cliname namin yun, then we have to work on it. So everybody in the community knew. So having an orientation for the students by experts on these conditions, parang natural na siyang next step eh. So awareness is very, very important and crucial. And I think you start with that, no? Kasi immediately to parang kung ano yung gagawin. Awareness muna, ano ibig sabihin ito? And then what can be done about it? How can people contribute to it? So ganun kayo pwede mag-start. And the students nga, as I mentioned, if you make them aware, then they can be partners in helping us do this. And okay, dun sa accommodations, it's open naman for everyone if you have, let's say, the condition. Ganun naman yun. If you do and you don't declare, then it is your lookout. Kaya nga pinapa-declare eh. Kasi hindi naman tayo pwede mag-label na ADHD ka. Hindi nga pwede yun. Kailangan may formal document. So it's a program that they can get into if they have the condition and they're willing to inform us. Diba? Ganun lang naman kasimple sa akin yun. If not, then you survive on your own. So I think the fairness there is still established, diba? If you have the condition, you can have a program. If you don't, then you don't need a program. Parang ganun. But as an institution, we said we will, and these are the parts of or components of being an inclusion provider or inclusive education institution, 'di ba? Parang gano'n. So, medyo ano 'yun siguro kailangan lang talagang daanan na process nung university and then the discussions, 'di ba? And you will have pitfalls, you will have good moments, ganun lang naman siya. Tapos yun nga, constant communication I think is necessary. First, parang anong-ano yung faculty, hindi namin kaya yan, etc., etc. Okay naman sila. And then we say that already when we hire people, na this is what we are, so if you have concerns about this, then maybe this is not the place for you. Ganun naka-straight yung ang usap. Kasi nga, it takes really a lot, but it's very, very fulfilling. You are able to, shift them out as a graduate and they become successful in life. Ay sobrang hindi mababayaran yun, parang ganon. But the struggles are very real din. So, yun lang. Sa tingin ko, you need to inform people, make them aware, tapos then you can start with the sessions on awareness, on understanding, and then doing something about it. Yun.
Thank you so much.
I hope that answers it.
Yes. Actually, yun po yung dream namin, parang university-wide awareness about SLN.
Ganyan din kami, SLN lang kami nag-start. Medyo mabigat na yung inclusion eh.
Yes.
Pero it's a good start.
Yes. So it looks like we've covered all of your questions po. And again, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation, Ms. Vicky. And at this moment, please make sure to answer our evaluation form for e-certificates. Kindly scan our QR code or click the Google form link. So at this moment, I would like to present the Certificate of Appreciation to Mrs. Maria Victoria Dayaw for being our resource speaker during the webinar entitled Accommodating and Supporting Students with Learning Needs in the Digital Classroom. To give us thank you so much po. Maraming salamat po. And to give us a wrap up for today, let's all have our Lobbying, Guidance, Counseling, and Testing Office Head, Ms. Cristina Meron, for the closing remarks.
So, thank you, Andrew. First and foremost, I would like to thank and congratulate Ma'am Vicky Dayaw for her very informative and helpful talk. And this is really very significant for us in the student support services, just like the guidance office and the faculty, since we really need to be more equipped when it comes to handling students with learning needs. I would also like to add that another reason that makes this webinar very significant is because this was held in the same month as the International Day of Persons with Disability, which was held last December 3. So also let me take this opportunity to thank everyone, to Sir Marco, Dr. Young, they were here. I think Dr. Young's still here, and our dearest deans, program chairs, and principals. Thank you for your support. And I would also like to thank my fellow teammates from the guidance department, both in BED and in tertiary, the Human Resource Management Office, especially Ms. Zara Alilio, who worked so hard to make this event possible. And my deepest gratitude also goes to all of you who are here today despite your busy schedule. It just shows how much you wanted to learn from this and that you genuinely care about our students. I know this can be very challenging, and just like what Ma'am Vicky said earlier, this is a process and it takes time. But I believe that it's possible as long as we're united and we share the same understanding of accommodation and inclusivity. So may we all continue to be inspired to work together for the betterment of our students. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Teen. And again, please make sure to answer our evaluation form for our key certificates, as well as for your attendance. And that is for today. We appreciate you being here. We would like to thank the Human Resource Management Office who made this webinar possible. Thanks again for joining us today. And please join us with our hymn. Thank you, Ms. Daya. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you po.
Thank you.
Teacher Vicky, thank you.
Thank you rin, ma'am. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, God bless. God bless.
Thank you. See
Thank you very
everyone.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Dr. Yang, thank you po.
Oh, see you in the group, the guidance group.